What's up guys, it is Z here, welcome back to Yugioh Deck of the Day. Today we have an update to the Lightsworn profile. This list is very different from what we've used to do in this channel because I wanted to make this deck a little bit more competitive to the side that if you're trying to play pure Lightsworns in a way to win with JD every single time, then it's not the most optimal thing nowadays. So you have to incorporate some engines from other stuff, mainly the Chaos engine, to make it more viable going first so you can make more interruptions. And I'm also utilizing a new monster that you can actually bring out very easily in a way that people haven't really thought of, or at least I haven't seen people playing this in anything rank 4 aspect, so I'm going to show you that too. So before we begin with the video, if you enjoyed, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and now let's get to the deck profile. So to start off, play 2 copies of Judgment Dragon. Judgment Dragon is kind of a bricky card in the early game, but you still want multiples because it's something that can blow out your opponent, and especially in a format with Eldritch is so viable, then you can just blow out all of their back row and your force or conquistadors, and if you have the second copy, you can bring it out on the field. And the reason I'm playing 2 instead of 3 is because this card is searchable now, so you don't really need to play this at 3. You can search it whenever you want, and you don't want to see multiples during the early game, like I said, because you won't be able to use them. So this is why 2 copies I think are perfectly fine. 3 copies of Raiden, of course, the monster you want to get on the field as fast as possible because it mills you 2, it mills you 2 more during the end phase. Really good card, level 4 tuner. 3 copies of Lumina, she facilitates your Raiden. When you have multiple copies of Lumina, then you can just bring them back from the grave to get more mills during the end phase if they stay on the field, or you get more link material on the field. And the discard is very important because there are some cards in the hand that are completely useless, so you don't really mind if you get them to the grave. Actually, you want them in the grave to get your monsters in the grave so you can have more copies of Lightsworns in your graveyard for Judgment Dragon. 3 copies of Lightsworn Lumina. I really like this card because of a certain engine I play. You get to banish a lot in this deck, so I think playing this card as an extra copy of something that can get more monsters onto the field is actually really important. I really like this card, and it's a dark monster, so it gives you access to the other side of the chaos, which you only play light in this deck, but just having darks can sometimes be important in case you draw one of 2 cards that I have in the deck. 3 copies of Wolf, pretty standard. You need to max it out if you're playing Lightsworns. It gets you a free monster on the field when it gets milled. 3 copies of Felice. I really like Felice, even though she cannot get milled by charge or a recharge, so you have to mill it with a monster, but you get to mill a lot with Minerva and with your Raiden, so it's really good to have more copies of that card in the deck so you can get more monsters on the field. You have to get a little bit lucky with this deck in order to make the most out of it, but it's something the Lightsworns always had the aspect of, so it's not something you can expect to work out perfectly every single game. And this is the fun part about this deck, because you don't know what you're going to get every game. It's not the same, so you really like getting lucky to get some insane boards on the field, but sometimes the opposite can happen and your hands will be bricky or your mills won't be that good, so you won't get the most out of your deck. And 1 copy of Lila, just 1, because you can search it with your charge and then you can just pop some in back row, maybe Floodgates, or with Eldritch being relevant, you can pop some of their stuff, but just 1 copy because this card is a little bit slow. You need to summon it and switch it to defense. Usually you will be bringing this back with your Lumina if you ever need to use its effect again, so you don't need to play more than 1. I do play 1 Wyvern Buster and 1 Collapse Serpent. I really like these 2 because they give me an interruption going first. Just opening Chaos Space means that you can have Heavenly Spheres on the field. I don't play a huge Dragon package, just these 2. I don't play something that can summon off Heavenly Sphere's second effect, but you don't really need to. You just want it for the bounce because it's such a powerful effect. And Chaos Space is a card that you won't run in the deck anyway now because it can search Judgment Dragon. This is why I said you can run away with playing only 2 copies, but still with these 2 cards in the deck, it's very important. And if you draw your Collapse Serpent, you can actually use it whenever you want, but Wyvern Buster could be dead because you only play light monsters, and this is where Lightsworn Lumina comes in because she's a dark monster. So if you can send her to the grave or mill her with your charge or your recharge, then you have something to get your Wyvern Buster on the field even without using your Chaos Space, because if you use Chaos Space, you are going to search your Collapse Serpent pretty much 100% of the time. So this is why you need to be able to make them both live if you draw them. For the hand traps, I play 3 copies of Nibiru and 3 copies of Gamma with a driver. The reason I'm playing these hand traps is because they're light. You could play Veiler if you want to, but Dragoon is not that relevant anymore, so you don't really need to stop Anaconda. It's not like Nibiru is that relevant either, but it can work against some matchups because this deck struggles against those break my board decks. So these hand traps are actually the most impactful against those decks, so you can stop them from comboing off. And being light means that you can discard them for Chaos Space, because if you played something like Impermanence or a Nash, and if you had a Chaos Space to go off for your Heavenly Spheres, you would not be able to discard them because they were not light attribute. But these hand traps, if you don't want to use them, you can just send them to the grave very easily. And Gamma is really good in this deck because even if you mill Driver, then that means you won't draw it, and Gamma will still be live because you can special summon your Driver from the grave. So this is why I like these hand traps in the deck. For the spells, play 3 charge, of course, mill 3, search any of your Lightsworns, 3 solar recharge, draw power, insane, you need to max out on both of them. 3 Chaos Space, this card is really good because not only does it give you access to Heavenly Spheres turn 1, it gives you access to your JD late game, and it also gives you a draw Pro 1 that's never bad for any deck, so this card is actually really good if you're playing any kind of Chaos version or light-based deck. I think this card should be there because it's so powerful. One copy of Foolish Burial. Usually you will send Wolf to get for you to another level 4 on the field. One copy of Instant Fusion. I do play 2 targets for this because I think you need to have access to both targets. Mostly one is for going first, the other for going second, but still I like the versatility of the deck. One Monster Reborn. Bring back a monster. Really good. And one Called by the Grave because people play Droll these days, and Droll really hurts you when you open stuff like Chaos Space, Recharge, Charge, but also cards like Skullmeister can hit you when you just try to bring back a Wolf, or maybe a Diddy Crow when you try to use Lumina's effect. So the Hunters that are being played this format are actually really impactful against this deck, so just playing this One Called by the Grave can sometimes save your life. For the extra deck, play one copy of Minerva. Of course, this is the reason Felice should be at 3 in the deck, because with this you can get a lot of draw power and a lot of monsters on the field. I really like this card. One copy of Dweller. Against stuff like Eldritch, this card can be an auto-win, will save you pretty much 1 or 2 turns, so you really need to play this if you're playing rank 4 deck. And the engine I really enjoy playing in rank 4 decks recently, not just this deck, but anything that can make rank 4, is one copy of Heartland Draco and one copy of Zeus. These two, I think they're just like people use rank 1 assembled Nightingale for Drytron and other stuff like Zodiac, so this is basically the same. Heartland Draco, by detaching a material, can attack directly, and then you can drop Zeus on top of it, and it has 2 materials, so you can use Zeus's effect, so this is actually really good. It's a blowout that can sometimes win you the entire game, so if you're playing anything rank 4 based, not just this deck, I really suggest that you play this, and you're going to like it a lot if you have access to Zeus, of course. For the Synchro monsters, play one copy of Michael. Level 7s are really easy to make with Lumina Raiden, so this card is really good. One copy of Dragster, another monster that can get you on the field turn 1, so you can have another interruption. One copy of Judgment Dragon of Heaven. Monster came out in Battles of Legends. This card is really insane for level 8 monster for the deck. And one copy of Draco Berserker. This is the monster I prefer using over Savage Dragon in this deck, because you don't really get to send links to the grave, at least not early game, so if you want a disruption monster, it's better to have something that will always be live rather than having something that sometimes might be live, and especially not in the early game. For the fusion monsters, play one copy of Thousand Eyes and one copy of Mud Dragon. Just like I said, if you're going second, your opponent has a lot of monsters on the field, especially if they have a monster under the extra monster zone. By using Restrict, you can get 2 of their monsters, and if you're going first, you can use your Mud Dragon to go into Minerva, to go into Dweller, or if you're going second, Mud Dragon is not that bad, because you can use the Heartland Draco combo to pretty much blow out your opponent with Zeus, so this is something that can actually be done during either player's turn. So if you want, you can keep Zeus's materials, so you can use a disruption during your opponent's turn if you don't need to blow out their field during your own turn. For the Link monsters, play one copy of Anima. Like I said, with Restrict, if this card, you can get a monster out from your opponent's field, you get insane value out of your instant fusion because you get 2 cards for the price of 1. One copy of Striker Dragon. I just play this, not Revolt Boot Sector or anything like that. Just this to get access to the second copy of Dragon, because when you summon the first Chaos Dragon, you need to send it to the grave to get searched to the other one, so you can summon this, and just these two give you access to Heavenly Spheres, which is an insane interruption on its own. One copy of Heavenly Spheres. You can play something to compensate for this card's second effect if you want in the deck. Maybe you can play a Goliath. You could actually play the Lightsworn, that is a dragon monster. It's not that great of a card, but it will give you another name in the grave for JD if that's something you find out that you're missing during the late game, because sometimes you can't get enough names in the grave, even though I do play the Twilights or Lumina, which is something I think is really good for that aspect as well, because the more names of Lightsworns you play, the easier JD will get out on the field and the less bricky it will be, because the sooner you get it out of your hand, then that's when you can actually pop off and destroy your opponent's board. So this is why something like this could be considered for the deck with Heavenly Spheres, but I think it's a little bit too bricky, even though you can discard it for Solar Recharge. I'm not playing it, but you can try it out if you want. One copy of Appaloosa. Can spam a lot in this deck, especially if you get good mills with Wolf and Felice, so you can summon this turn 1. And one copy of World Sword, so you can actually OTK your opponent, because sometimes if you cannot get access to your Judgment Dragon, this deck can struggle dealing damage, because just getting out some low level monsters and even synchroning them into level 7 synchro won't do the trick if you just want to rush out your opponent, because you know that if you don't OTK them fast enough, then they're going to outgrind you with something like Eldritch or something like Drytron, and then you won't be able to come back because you will be out of resources compared to them. So this is why I think you should play Porosor in the deck. So yep, that's the deck, guys. It's really fun. Lightsworn has always been one of those most fun favorite decks that people just enjoy playing in any kind of format, just because of the aspect that it has of being technically a luck-based deck, but not like something like Burning Abyss, because in Burning Abyss, even if you don't mill anything, you can still pop off, but in this deck you have to get lucky to get the most out of it, and this is what's most fun about. It's basically a coin flip deck without the coin flips, but basically the same, so this is why people enjoy this. They try to innovate. There are so many versions of this deck out there. You can play more of a Chaos version. There are stuff like the Chaos Creator that came out in Toon Chaos, so you can use that too. There are so many versions. You can experiment with a deck. You can see what works for you. But no matter what build you make, I'm guaranteeing you that you're going to have a hell of a time playing this deck. So yep, that's the deck, guys. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, comment down below what decks you would like to see next, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and we'll see you next time.